Stop everything. Stop scrolling, stop arguing in the group chats, stop pretending you didn't feel the ground move this week. Because what just happened isn't a music story. It's a heist. A daylight, flashbulblit, corporate-signed heist, and Drake is standing in the middle of the vault holding a trophy that never belonged to him. They gave him Michael Jackson's record. They put it in his hands. They lit up every screen in America with the headline. And somewhere, in a place none of US can reach, the king of pop just turned his head. Because Drake didn't break Michael Jackson's record. Drake was handed a participation ribbon with Michael Jackson's name laser-etched onto it, and the entire machine sprinted to convince you that a ribbon and a crown weigh the same. They don't. They never will. And by the time this video is over, you're going to understand exactly why the biggest chart headline of the decade is also the biggest cultural con of the decade, and why every single person waving a Drake flag right now just got played by the algorithm they thought was their friend. Now, before we go 1 inch deeper, hit that like button. I don't want your favor, I want your firepower. Every like on this video is a match struck against a lie. Every share is a brick pulled out of the wall the streaming industry has been building around Michael Jackson's legacy for the last 5 years. And if you comment, if you argue, if you fight in the replies below, you're not helping me. You're helping the culture defend itself. Because the culture is under siege. And the man leading the siege just posted a screenshot from Apple Music like it was a knighthood. Let me set the room. Drake, in the year of our Lord 2026, officially broke Michael Jackson's record for the most #1 singles by a male solo artist on the Billboard Hot 100. That's the headline. That's what the machine wants you to walk away with. 14 words, no context, no asterisk, no footnote, no memory. Just, Drake passed Michael. Move on. Buy the merch. Refresh the app. Stream the album on loop while you sleep so the counter clicks another notch tomorrow. That's the pitch. That's the entire play. And here's where I lose my patience, because this isn't a debate about taste. This isn't Kendrick versus Drake. This isn't East versus West or old heads versus new heads. This is a straight-up accounting fraud dressed up as a coronation, and the people running the numbers are begging you not to look under the hood. Circle up on this. Michael Jackson had 13 solo #1 singles as a solo artist. Solo. One name on the marquee. One voice on the record. No feature list stretching down the page like a subway map. No Atlanta detour. No borrowed bounce. No ghost pen inked in shadow. 13 songs where Michael Jackson stood alone in the booth and the world stood still. Drake, by every honest count anyone with a calculator has done, has 6 solos in that pile. 6. The rest? The rest are collaborations dressed up as headliners, guest verses relabeled as leads, and features so heavy they should have been billed the other way around. The record didn't get broken. The rulebook got bent. And the second you bend the ruler, you don't measure anything anymore, you just draw a line and call it history. And this is the part where the machine gets loud, because the machine has to get loud. When the math doesn't work, you turn up the marketing. So here comes the parade. Here comes the tweet storm. Here comes the countdown clock on the timeline. Here comes the coordinated push of Drake is bigger than Michael Jackson now, from accounts that were created 6 months ago and post nothing but album art. Sit with this. Because if the record was real, it wouldn't need a marketing team. Michael Jackson didn't need a marketing team to sell Thriller. Thriller sold itself into every living room on planet Earth. Michael Jackson didn't need bots refreshing MTV. Michael Jackson didn't need a stan army sleeping with their phones under their pillows on repeat. Michael Jackson had the world's attention because Michael Jackson earned the world's attention, a moonwalk, a red jacket, a single glove, a Motown 25 performance that still runs through the veins of every performer alive. Drake needs a press release. Michael Jackson needed a stage. You know what really tells the story? The pure sales. Because streaming can lie. Streaming can be juiced, gamed, inflated, farmed, bought, and looped in 100 quiet ways nobody wants to talk about on camera. But pure sales, the number of humans who reached into their pocket, pulled out real money, and said, I want this in my hand, pure sales don't lie. And Drake's brand new, machine-hyped, culture-crashing, Michael Jackson toppling album? 13,000 pure copies. 13,000. For a superstar. For the man they're telling us is the biggest artist alive. For 3 albums stacked back-to-back in the number 1, 2, and 3 slots, a formation the industry has quietly admitted was a chart management maneuver, not a musical event. 13,000. Michael Jackson used to sell that in the minutes between 2 Pepsi commercials. Michael Jackson used to sell that while he was asleep. Michael Jackson sold Thriller so hard, so fast, so relentlessly that record stores had to hire extra staff on Saturdays. And Drake, in 2026, with the whole internet as his amplifier, moved 13,000 physical units. That's not a coronation. That's a whisper. And they're trying to sell you the whisper as thunder. Now let me get to the part that really burns me, because the numbers are one thing, but the disrespect is another. Drake didn't just quietly accept the headline. Drake and his people ran a lap. They took a victory tour on Michael Jackson's grave. They posted the graphic. They made the reel. They cut the interview. They looked into the camera and said, in effect, the crown is mine now. No humility. No footnote. No line in the sand that read, different eras, different tools, deepest respect to the king. Nothing. Just a screenshot of a chart position and a smirk. Hear me out, you don't walk into the Louvre and hang your kid's finger painting next to the Mona Lisa and call yourself the greatest painter alive. You don't. But that's the energy. That's the exact energy. And every real music fan in America felt it at the same time, in the same breath, in the same twist of the stomach. Let's talk about what Michael Jackson actually was, because half the internet is out here trying to shrink him into a Wikipedia paragraph. Michael Jackson was global hysteria. Not popularity, hysteria. When Michael Jackson landed in a country, presidents cleared their schedules. Michael Jackson didn't tour cities, Michael Jackson colonized them. Michael Jackson sold out stadiums in minutes, in territories where his label didn't even have a distribution deal yet. Michael Jackson turned a single music video, black or white, into a Fox network event that pulled 500 million viewers when there was no Twitter, no TikTok, no YouTube, no push notifications, no algorithmic feed pumping the premiere into every phone on the planet. 500 million. Michael Jackson made merchandise a religion. Michael Jackson made choreography a language. Michael Jackson made a single glove a symbol so powerful that 35 years later a museum can still charge you $20 to stand 3 feet away from it. That's not a chart record. That's a civilization-level artist. And a chart record, a bent, borrowed, group project chart record, does not touch that. Not even close. Not on the closest day of its most inflated week. And now the counter-argument, right? Now the Drake defenders come running with the same tired script they've been rehearsing since Tuesday. Michael Jackson didn't have the internet. Michael Jackson didn't have social media. Michael Jackson didn't have Spotify. Cool. Let's actually think this one through instead of parroting it. Because that argument, when you take 3 seconds to look at it, doesn't defend Drake, it convicts him. Michael Jackson conquered a fragmented, expensive, physical media, gate-kept, radio-controlled world where you had to fight for every ear. Drake was handed a frictionless, infinite shelf space, one-tap, algorithmically boosted, autoplay into your headphones while you sleep world where the machine does half the work for him. And with all of that on his side, with every advantage stacked on his desk, Drake still couldn't move more than 13,000 physical copies. Read that back. Read it again. The playing field isn't tilted in Michael Jackson's favor, my friend. The playing field is tilted so far toward Drake that a beach ball would roll uphill in the other direction. And even with the tilt, Drake couldn't hit the goal. This is what I've started calling the Streaming Mirage Effect. Write it down. Because you're going to see it everywhere from now on. The Streaming Mirage Effect is when a modern artist's numbers look astronomical on the dashboard, but the moment you drag those numbers into the real world, into tickets sold, into merch moved, into physical units purchased, into cultural memory, into songs your grandmother can hum, the numbers evaporate. Poof. Gone. Because they were never solid to begin with. They were vapor pressed into a spreadsheet. And Drake, more than any artist in the streaming era, is the poster child for the mirage. Look at the tour numbers. Look at the second-hand ticket market. Look at the empty seats in the corners of stadiums that were supposed to be sold out. Look at the merchandise sitting on discount racks 2 weeks after a drop. Look, really look, and then tell me with a straight face that Drake is bigger than the man whose face is still on every fifth t-shirt in every mall on every continent. Now let's talk about the beef, because you can't tell this story without it. You cannot understand how Drake ended up with a hollow crown without understanding the moment the culture stopped pretending. Roll back to the Control record. Kendrick Lamar named names. Kendrick called out J. Cole. Kendrick called out Big Sean, on the same track. Kendrick called out Whale. Kendrick called out Pusha. Kendrick called out a whole lineup of grown men holding microphones, and every single one of them nodded, sharpened their pens, and went back to work. Because that's the culture. That's how the culture has always worked. You get called out, you level up, you fire back on wax, and the whole genre gets stronger. Every rapper on that list understood the assignment. Every rapper except one. Drake. Drake caught feelings. Drake went on the radio. Drake told Angie Martinez, on Power 105, that you can't diss a man on a track and then dap him up the next day. And in that one sentence, Drake told the entire culture, I am a guest here. I don't understand the language. I want the medals without the sparring. The culture heard it. The culture filed it. The culture waited. And the culture came back for the receipt years later. And when the receipt came due, when Kendrick finally decided the debt had matured, it wasn't a rap battle. It was an obituary written in real time. It was Grammys. It was a Super Bowl halftime show that turned a football stadium into a courtroom. It was Compton laid out on national television. It was California turning up so loud the walls of the industry cracked. And it wasn't just about Drake losing a battle, it was about the culture reclaiming the deed to its own house. Because the moment Kendrick stood on that stage, the moment the confetti fell, the moment, Not Like Us, turned into a national anthem, the answer to, who owns hip-hop, got written in stone. And it wasn't the guy from Toronto with the streaming dashboard. It was the poet from Compton with the pen. So circle back with me. Drake gets embarrassed by Kendrick. Drake loses the culture. Drake watches Compton drape itself in gold while his own city goes quiet. And what does Drake do? Does Drake retreat, reflect, rebuild? No. Drake drops 3 albums stacked on top of each other, floods the streaming market, watches the machine push them to number 1, number 2, and number 3 simultaneously, a chart formation that has raised eyebrows in every corner of the industry, and then Drake looks up, sees Michael Jackson's name on the leaderboard, and takes a swing at it. Because that's the whole play. If you can't win the culture, buy the scoreboard. If you can't earn the crown, rent one. If you can't be Michael Jackson, at least stand on top of his shoulders and pretend you're taller. The mask is going to slip. Actually, the mask has already slipped. Half the internet just isn't ready to admit what they're looking at. Now some of you are watching this and you're doing the mental gymnastics. You're saying, well, Drake is a great artist too. Fine. Sure. Drake has hits. Drake has range. Drake can move a room when Drake wants to. Nobody is denying the man made bangers, the man made a decade of bangers. Drake is not the villain here for making music. Drake is the villain here for pretending the music is bigger than it is, for weaponizing his fanbase to erase 40 years of Michael Jackson's global thunder with a screenshot of Apple Music, for standing on stolen ground and claiming he built the house. That's the crime. Not the music. The theft of narrative. The theft of legacy. The theft of a lane that only one man ever walked. And let's talk about that fanbase for a second, because they are the engine of this whole operation. If you argue with Drake fans online for more than 90 seconds, you notice the pattern. They don't defend the art. They defend the metric. They quote Spotify numbers like scripture. They post first-week sales like sports scores. They frame every conversation around volume, never around depth. Ask a Michael Jackson fan why they love Michael Jackson, you'll get a childhood memory, a specific dance move, a moonwalk on Motown 25 seared into their soul. Ask a Drake fan why Drake matters, you'll get a chart position. That is the gap. That is the whole gap in a sentence. One artist lives in the culture. The other artist lives in the dashboard. And dashboards, my friend, get reset every Monday. Here comes the rehook, because I need you to lock in for this part. Take everything I just said and hold it in one hand. Now hold this in the other. Nobody on this planet, has ever needed to argue that Michael Jackson was Michael Jackson. There is no, hear me out, clause on Michael Jackson. There is no asterisk. There is no context you need to add. Michael Jackson is one of maybe 3 artists in the history of recorded music whose greatness is settled law. You don't have to make the case. You just have to say the name. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson. The name does the work. And that is the exact thing Drake cannot buy, cannot stream, cannot inflate, cannot borrow, cannot ghostwrite, and cannot chart his way into. Because that thing isn't a number. It's a frequency. It's a hum in the culture. And Michael Jackson still hums louder from the grave than Drake hums from the top of every playlist on earth. Let me pull one more thread. Some people say, well, if Michael Jackson had Spotify, he'd do the same numbers. No, my friend. He'd do worse for the counter, better for the culture. Because Michael Jackson's greatness lived in events. Live TV. World tours. Physical albums you owned. Music videos that shut down networks. In a streaming era, all of that gets flattened into background noise. Michael Jackson would still be Michael Jackson, but the dashboard would undercount him because the dashboard is designed to reward volume over impact. It rewards the drip, not the moment. And Drake is the god of the drip. Drake is the god of the loop. Drake is the god of the passive replay while you fold laundry. And that is a real skill, a real, monetizable, career-lengthening skill, but it is not what Michael Jackson was doing. Michael Jackson was doing detonations. Drake is doing background music with a marketing team. Different sport. Different scoreboard. Different weight class. Let me widen the lens one more time, because I don't want anybody accusing me of cherry-picking. Pull up the entire pre-internet superstar roster and ask yourself an honest question. Prince, the entire Purple Rain apparatus, the guitar, the persona, the vault of unreleased masters, Prince did what Prince did with no streaming assist, no algorithm, no viral loop. Prince still isn't Michael Jackson. Bobby Brown, El DeBarge, Rick James, entire discographies built on radio play and physical stores and Soul Train appearances, brilliant catalogs, and none of them are Michael Jackson either. Now flip it. Take the modern shelf. Chris Brown, all the range in the world, decades of hits, still not Michael Jackson. Justin Bieber, global for a decade and a half, still not Michael Jackson. Taylor Swift, arguably the single most commercially engineered pop artist of the streaming era, will fill a stadium in 20 seconds, and even Taylor Swift's most feverish stans, the ones who mapped her entire tour by hand, will not seriously walk up to a microphone and claim Taylor Swift is bigger than Michael Jackson. That comparison stays in the group chat, where it belongs. Because everybody with a functioning eardrum knows the truth. There's the Michael Jackson tier, and then there's every other tier, and Drake, as gifted as Drake is at the streaming game, is not knocking on the door of the Michael Jackson tier. Drake is on the 4th or 5th floor, and Michael Jackson is on the roof, and the elevator between the 2 floors was welded shut in 1983. And here's the part one want the Drake defenders to actually chew on, if they've made it this far without closing the tab. Every time you go online and yell about the record, every time you fight for Drake's chart position, every time you tweet the ranking, every time you screenshot the leaderboard, you are proving my point louder than I ever could. Because you are not defending the music. You are defending the marketing. You are defending the corporation. You are doing free labor for a machine that will replace your favorite artist the moment his numbers dip. Michael Jackson fans don't do that. Michael Jackson fans don't argue chart positions. Michael Jackson fans just play the music. Because the music is the argument. It always was. It always will be. Now here's my last punch, and then I want to hear from you. Records are made to be broken, that part is true. That part I'll give you. But records are supposed to be broken cleanly. Broken by someone who steps into the ring with the same weapons, on the same ground, with the same disadvantages, and still wins. Drake did not step into Michael Jackson's ring. Drake got a different ring, a smaller ring, a ring with softer ropes and a padded floor and a referee who owed him a favor, and he waved from the corner while the marketing team announced him as the winner. That is not a broken record. That is a bookkeeping trick. And the moment the culture is done being polite about it, which, judging by the last 72 hours online, is right now, that trophy is going to feel very, very heavy in Drake's hands. One more thing before I close this out, because somebody is going to type it in the comments if I don't say it now. Well, why do you care so much? It's just a chart record. I care because chart records are how the next generation learns the story. Kids born in 2015 don't have Michael Jackson on their radio. Kids born in 2015 have TikTok, Spotify Wrapped, and Billboard headlines. So when the biggest headline of the year reads, Drake surpasses Michael Jackson, the kid growing up right now files that under fact. Files it under history. Files it under, Drake was bigger. And in 20 years, when that kid is running a music blog, or a label, or a streaming service, that filed misconception becomes policy. That's how legacies get rewritten, not with a lie, but with a headline nobody bothered to correct. This is the correction. This is somebody bothering. And I hope you bother too. So here we are. Michael Jackson still holds the crown, whether the Billboard graphic agrees or not. Drake still holds the streaming trophy, whether the culture salutes it or not. And you, the person watching this, the person deciding what to type in the comments, the person choosing what to stream tonight, you are the tiebreaker. You always were. The corporations don't decide who's the greatest of all time. The algorithm doesn't decide. The dashboard doesn't decide. You decide. And the moment enough of us decide out loud, the mirage collapses. That's my piece. Drop yours below. Tell me, do you think Drake actually broke Michael Jackson's record, or did the industry break the record on Drake's behalf? Tell me if you're tired of the Michael Jackson comparisons, or if you think the culture needs to keep making them until the record books get honest. Tell me who's next in line to inherit this crown after Drake, because I have a name in mind and I don't think you're going to like it. And if you want the deep dive on why Kendrick Lamar's next move is about to make this entire Drake versus Michael Jackson conversation look like a warm-up act, check the next video on the screen. Because the second Kendrick opens his mouth, every headline you've read this week gets rewritten. And you're going to want to be here when it does.